I'm Adrian Wilson. I'm a PI on this project, and I want to tell you a story that's not directly a birth story, but it's a story about birth. It comes from the Bible, right at the beginning, in the book of Genesis, which begins, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep," and so on. And God does a lot of creating, and he makes the birds and the fishes, the heavens and the earth, and so on. And eventually he makes man. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. That man was Adam. And God decides that Adam needs a friend, a wife, so he creates Eve. And God says to them, the Lord God commanded the man, saying, "Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die." Jumping ahead to chapter 3. "Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, Hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil." And we know what happened next. Eve ate the fruit. She liked it. Adam turned up. He said, "What are you eating, dear?" She told him. He had some too. Then they realised they were naked. They were ashamed. They're now aware of good and evil. And then God turns up. Look at it from God's point of view. He's only made one rule, and they've broken it. God's very angry. And he punishes them. He punishes the serpent. "Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee." And similarly, he punishes Adam, saying, "You've now got to work for a living. You can't just pick fruit off the tree." So 2 punishments for the woman. The first, the pains of childbirth, which is why I'm including it in these birth stories. And the second, which is often forgotten, "Thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee." 2 points to make about that before we come back to the birth aspect. First, notice, this means that gender inequality was not there at the creation. It arose as a consequence of the fall. So men and women were actually created equal, according to the Bible. And secondly, gender inequality is not a gift to the man. It's a punishment to the woman. As for childbirth, this explains the pains of childbirth. But in the words of Percival Willoughby, who I'll be talking about in another birth story, God said to Eve, "In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children," not that he would destroy her. The Bible makes childbirth painful, doesn't make it dangerous. Thanks very much.